Thank you for tuning in to the World Builder's Anvil, episode 126, Kaizen boards for world building.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Welcome back. As always, I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I am Michael Miller.
Was that more calmed down this time?
Well, did you do it again?
Welcome back. As always, I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Fast Track Miller. Is that more what you were shooting?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
As long as we got it. So, what is a Kaizen board?
Okay. A Kaizen board is essentially, it's a...
Spell that?
I believe if I spell it correctly here, it's K-A-Z-E-N.
Actually, it's kind of redundant for me to say that because I imagine if they downloaded the episode that they saw it written out already.
Yes, and irregardless of what I just said,
irregardless
it will be
is not a word.
Spelled correctly. It actually is.
No, regardless. Regardless is.
Irregardless.
That's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Don't make me ask Uncle Google.
It's not a thing. It's a commonly mistaken thing.
No.
You're wrong. And you're wasting show time. You're really going to look this up while we're recording the show. Okay, so a Kaizen board, to my knowledge, is a chart. That's the majority of what I know about it, and it's an organizational tool to lay out a project. Is it not? Is that a good way to explain it?
Yeah, it's used a lot in IT for what they call agile development.
Agile development.
Yeah,
developing agile or
using
developing agilely.
Agile methodologies to develop products. So the idea is you create the smallest possible product and you iterate it out until it's correct. It's what they call game making, I believe.
I might have to take it back.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to.
I am taking it back. I think they created this word recently because so many people use it wrong. And that's what I'm sticking to.
So what he's trying to say is yes, irregardless is a word.
Apparently it is, because someone told me a while back that they were like, no, that's not a word. It's a word that people, use. But, actually, it's been around for quite a while. All right, irregardless originated in the dialect of American speech in the early 20th century. It is fairly widespread. Use in speech called for its attention of usage comment.
I think it's actually more dated language
as early as 1927. The most frequently repeated remarks about there is no such word. There is such a word, however. It is still used primarily in speech, although it can be found from time to time in edited prose. Its reputation has not risen over the years and is still a long way from general acceptance. Use regardless instead. That's what the dictionary says, use regardless. So I'm telling you, use regardless instead. But I will bow that I was wrong, and irregardless
I think it's more data language
is a word.
Yeah.
I've actually been tempted to use it, but purposefully stop myself from using it because that's not a word. But it is. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So write down the date, Jeff. I'm admitting that I was wrong.
I actually don't use standard English when I speak. You should have known that by now from Indiana.
Mostly because most of what you say is gibberish and babblings of a madman.
I just make up my languages, so...
So what's a Kaizen board?
Quote unquote.
Right. No one knows what a Kaizen board is. Jeff's making that up too.
Yes, we're making it up right now, so I get all back right.
Copyright Jeffrey Ingram.
Yeah. So anyone who's come out with a book already owes me money.
Yeah. Sweet. Oh, backdating copywriting. I like that. Yeah, yes.
Okay. So the idea is you create this board, and it's a very simple board. So essentially along the top, you have the steps that you need to go through to complete something.
And Jeff is using the word board, which irritates me. It's a chart. You've got stuff on the top, stuff on the side.
Oh, no, literally. They're usually done like this on a board.
On a board, but you could do it on a piece of paper too.
You could. There's applications for it.
I think it should be change the copyright to Kaizen chart.
It was anything Kaizen. But anything is optional. Okay. So if you use the word anything or Kaizen.
Kaizen bedsheet. Kaizen car hood.
Now say anything.
Kaizen anything.
Yeah, you owe me twice.
Oh, man. That was a trick. Okay, so what we're talking about is a chart, and I assume that you're going to put like a PDF or something attached to this episode.
I'll put up a sample of what we'll go over in the show as our example.
Okay.
But the idea is along the top is you want to track the steps you need to take to complete the process.
Any given
process.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're as simple as work taken, work in progress. Well, that's kind of redundant. Waiting, work available, work in progress, and work completed. Maybe there's a couple more steps in a normal board. And a lot of times if there's multiple people working on it, it still works. Instead of like checking it off that it's there, you would say Jeff instead of a check because Jeff would have it, or Michael if Michael would have it.
And Jeff actually uses this because if you go into the side room, like it says, check underwear, make sure underwear are clean, put on clean underwear,
take off underwear,
confirm,
put on pants.
Yes. So, so that Jeff's Kaizen board is very underwear centric.
Yeah, very underwear centric. Throw out. I'm not going to get into that. Yeah. My wife might hear it.
Clean underwear. Make sure underwear is clean.
Yeah, and then basically down the side, you list all of the things that are that kind of work. So, for example, we're going to talk a little bit today about creating states.
States, geographic states within your...
Capital S state.
Okay.
So, a country. I consider tribal groups a state, even though they're not really a functional state, but it's an area with a common sort of stuff going on that's not quite developed to a level of a state. But
so they haven't, I assume in that reference, they haven't ironed out a physical border?
Or there might be a physical border of where the tribes are, but which tribe controls what spot of the board? Think of like the steppes in Asia throughout history. They change so often.
Right.
You just call them the steppe peoples or something like that,
The Mongols.
For a time,
The Huns.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea is like when we talk about states for framework world building, the things I like to talk about where I have on here are sort of your 3-point descriptors. Those 3 bullet points that you have that, might be a sentence. Like it could be spaghetti poop assassins. That would be a very, I think, classic example.
Spaghetti poop assassins.
Either 3 words or 3 bullet points. These should not be chapters. They're just brief things to give you an idea of what the basic of this nation is. Then you might have cultural makeup. Forms of government might be one. So you have along the top, you have all those list of things that it takes to make up a state. Then down the side, you might have Badrachus, Grimbaldus.
Why don't you read the ones you have there so you can? So at the top,
I'm actually doing that.
You have it in front of you. Okay.
No, I'm just going off of memory.
Okay.
And then,
well, you didn't list the top. That's what I was going to say. You have 3-point descriptor, I think.
Yeah, just like what I just said.
Cultural norms,
which I actually changed because that's actually culture.
Okay. Government, history, and is that image? Is that what's that? Image.
And the reason I put image there is that let's say I want an image of what they look like. Maybe I draw it myself. Maybe I'm paying someone to do it. You might not have those for everything. If something is an exception where you don't need it, like say, I don't need form of government, or let's say if taxation was one of them, I wouldn't need that for tribes because that might vary literally tribe to tribe within that group.
Right.
So
and they're probably working more at a tech level where it's just
it's more of a barter thing, like you're giving them some food when they show up to your hut.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Here you go.
So
no, I want a pint of blood from your firstborn.
No kids yet. Oh, well.
2 pints.
Where's the? I'm stopping right now.
Yeah, stop right there. So that's the top of it. So just to cover, so on Jeff's list, it's a state light. Is that what that says? Or state, that says list? State list. So state list on the top of Jeff's Kaizen board. Across the top, and again, it's a chart. You've got 3-point descriptors in one column, culture in the second column, government in the third, history in the fourth, and then image in the fifth. And then running down the left side of the chart, you have your different cultures. You say them because I can't read all of them.
Yes. So you have a list of all the cultures that would be developed. And you have literally your entire, every culture that you know exists in your world.
So it could be a big chart, potentially.
It could be a very big chart. It's great. Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets are great for storing the stuff electronically.
Are the Google Sheets, is that the same file suffix as what you would use in Excel or no?
No.
It's a different
but you can, like, if you put an Excel up in Google Drive, it will open through Sheets if the person doesn't have Excel, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
they're similar ideas. They're just different implementations of it. But spreadsheets are very good for this if you want to store, especially a large list, because over time it might break down. So essentially, you might have some cultures, like for example, on the list I have here, I have the kingdom of Bedracus, I have the kingdom of Garbaldus, I have the kingdom of Ordessa, I have the mountain orcs, and you can have all of the ones listed there. And the strength of a Kaizen board is there are some days that you are prospering with time and great ability to be able to achieve. And so you can review your list and go, okay, well, I noticed for 3 of my things, I've already finished everything for Garbaldus, for Bedracus, and for the kingdom of Ordessa, but the image. So the reason I have the image there is because I'm not doing the image. I have this jerk called Mike.
I'm working on the image right now.
No, Mike.
Oh, gotcha.
And
not to be confused
your name's
with
Michael.
Oh, I know what my name is.
But he's supposed to create all the images for me. He's not yet done that. So I know I can.
It's a good thing I'm here to do it since he's not.
Well, actually, Michael's following up with Mike right now.
Yeah, I'm actually drawing the spaghetti poop assassin right now.
So the idea is, if I have a little bit of time, I sit there and go, I don't have a time to come up with a history of a country, but let me take 2 minutes and I can follow up with Mike on the 3 things that he owes me. If I'm working on this project with multiple people and I'm waiting for any of them, I know who has stuff out that we need. Or I can sit there and go, you know what? I don't really have the time to create a history today, but let me go down and create a few different pieces of information on, I'll come up with my 3-point descriptor for the mountain orcs now because I have everything else done. I need something quick to do. I want to world build a little bit, but I don't have a lot of time. Let me look at the steps where I'm at and say, which one of those do I have the time to complete now? And then tomorrow, when I have more time, I sit there and I can tackle the history of the kingdom of Ordessa because I now have more time.
Now, because it seems that part of the goal of the Kaizen board is to be a simplified organizational tool to take some really complicated information and tasks that you need to do. Mm-hmm. Would you maybe stick an approximate, the amount of time you might need for those tasks with it? Maybe like 20 minutes. 40 minutes, like this is the estimate.
You could do that if you're starting off, and I would advise when you're starting off something and you don't know how long the steps are going to take you approximately, it's good to do that every time is to see how long it takes to get an idea of how long
it'll take me.
But over time, like some of them, this one, history would be long, but in my head, I really know Garbaldus. So I know what their history is. I just have to write it out. So that's quicker than a country in the middle of the continent that I've never really worked on before. If I would go do I'd have to really think a lot more about it. So some of it is just the estimation in your brain of how long things are going to take. But yeah, it definitely does not hurt to go, well, it's a history, which takes me 10 minutes normally, but this is a completely new area. It's probably going to take me an hour and I only have 30 minutes. Let me go work on the type of government for the kingdom of Bedracus.
My point for asking is mm-hmm. for the actual mechanics of when you're laying out your Kaizen board. Is that a step that you would include?
I do not.
You don't.
I do not, but it is a completely appropriate thing. You kind of want to know how long things are going to take you, even if it's just a ballpark to sit there, because part of it's really more for getting things done. So you sit there and you have a list of things that you need to get done. When you have time to work on it, you can look at the list and go, here's all the things I need to get done for this task I'm working on of creating the states for the area of my next book. So here's what I have done. I can see it just visually. It's like looking at a chart because it technically is a chart on a board. And
chart board. Board chart. Charted board. Kaizen charty board. Sheet. Hood. Assassin.
Everything.
Spaghetti. Poop.
So the thing is, you can sit there and look quickly and get an idea of how close you are to completion. If you have 12 areas where they intersect with the things above it, that's like 12 things that have to get done. And if you get 6 of them done, you're halfway to being completed. So you see the progress a little bit over time, and you sit there and cherry pick stuff and go, well, I have time to take care of this today, so I can get 3 of those where I can't quite get this one thing done for over here, or I'm still waiting on that jerk Mike because Mike's a real jerk.
Unlike Michael. Let me interrupt for just a second because there's something that you said in there that it reminds me of something. I think it is important when you're creating a project for yourself like this, and by like this, I mean a world building project, and you're organizing it with a tool such as a Kaizen board. The thing that's great about the Kaizen board is as you're checking it off, you are acknowledging that you've completed something.
You're stating.
You're flat stating that, okay, I'm done that. Because a lot of times we'll do things that get us closer to our end goal, and we don't realize that we've actually done work on it. And sometimes you get discouraged by feeling like you haven't done anything but spin wheels when you actually haven't covered ground.
Exactly.
But unless you have a means to mark that ground covered, you don't necessarily get that you have it. You are closing in on your goal.
And especially if you're like me, where you're somewhere between a gardener and an architect world builder.
See episode 80.
Creating a state can be a lot of information that's written down. And you're like, all I'm doing is working on this one thing. When you make that one thing 10 things, it's easier to go, okay, it's really easy. I feel tired, but I just have to come up with a type of government. I'm just going to make them a democracy.
Yeah.
For my Mongol style.
Yeah, they're very civilized Mongols.
Yeah.
But the point is that, like, you'd be surprised at how much you're actually doing when it doesn't seem like it. But if you have a means to gauge what you've completed, you're actually, you get to see your progress a little more clearly than if you're just trying to keep it all in your mind. And
the good thing to keep in mind is, too, is for anything that you're doing, your plot could be done this way. So I have major plot 1, and there are specific things I need to get done to make the story happen. And here are all the chapters.
Subplot.
You can use a Kaizen board to plot out where every plot is going to interact on what chapters before you even start writing. And then as you're writing, you can sit there and go, is chapter 1 done? Let me look back at my board. Oh, wait. I forgot to, cover the jerky cousin's sister's dog's trainer who's plotting to take the book on mythology and take it home because he likes the book on mythology, the big orange book.
Yeah, it's a low bar for thievery that he's got set, but he is focused. We'll give him that.
He's focused on that. That's his goal in life. Take that mythology
book when no one's looking. I'll teach the dog to do a trick, and when they're looking at the trick dog, I'll steal the book.
And use the book to take over the world.
It's a thin plan. It's a thin plan.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a smaller character. It's all right. He doesn't have to.
That's why he's a subplot.
Subplot. No romance. No romantic involvement in that.
Well, at least for anyone else.
Kaizen boards.
That could be talking too many ways. Perfect. Yes. So back to Kaizen boards. So to abstract it again. So if you're putting this together for something that you're working on, whether it's world building, putting like a book, something to really track how you're doing in writing your novel, a way to give yourself waypoints, essentially, milestones, as you call them in project management, is you sit there along the top, you're listing all of the steps that you need to take to complete it. So for a book, you're going to list out your chapters or your scenes, depending on how you write.
Or your drafts, maybe.
Or your drafts, depends on how you write. Maybe you write story and then you work in subplots.
Or how far along they are.
Yeah. Or for your overall scope book, you can say, okay, all my chapters are now done with draft 1. Let me go back and I don't have time to. Chapter 32 is really long. Boy, that info dump I just gave is really long. So let me go do this one like 17 paragraph description of a door handle. Chapter 14A. Okay.
It's a great door handle.
That's a great door handle. You love that door handle. Everyone loves that door handle.
Sometimes I like to. I was just going to say, sometimes I like to back into the door handle.
But so the Kaizen boards is really a good way to add some organization to whatever you're working on, but the organization doesn't become a job. Like there are great project management tools, like you can get Microsoft Project, which you can literally you can create how much time you think stuff's going to take, what materials you're going to need, and you can come out with a project plan for a novel, and it will be very long. It will take you probably days to complete one, and your first one even longer. So I like Kaizen boards. They're simple. They allow you to sit there and when your wife's like, you've been working on that book for how long? Are you done yet? And you sit there and go, Well, I have.
Yeah,
I'm actually 92.3% complete. Oh, okay. Just quick math based off the board. So that is the excellent tip of the day.
What's the excellent tip of the day? Use Kaizen boards?
Yeah, use Kaizen boards.
As opposed to an overly complicated organization. Because I find, like, I have used so many different types of organizational tools.
Yeah.
From planners to, mostly I'm referring to planners. And some of them were very helpful. Some of them I found that as I used it just like a Kaizen board where I was checking stuff off and getting things done, it helped me. It actually helped me motivate to do more. Yeah. Because it's like, oh, I did something. Oh, I did something. Oh, I did something. And then I would.
The two major forms of I use are checklist and Kaizen boards because it's just, for me, it's simple. And when I spend, especially when you want to do something, but you're a little fearful, you'll use the excuse of the organizational tool to really properly organize this thing that it's in me. It needs to come out.
Now it's organized, but I haven't completed it.
Wait, let me go back and reorganize because I'm not sure if the organization is quite correct yet.
This reminds me of two problem-solving stories. One, a friend of mine and I were talking about like social problems in our social lives a long time ago. And he's like, you get that you intellectualize like all of the social scenarios and all this, like if you're dealing with a problem. And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. That's how I make sense of stuff. And he's like, but do you also get that once you feel you understand the circumstance, you feel accomplished to the point that you think that you've solved it? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I mean exactly that. There are times where I've watched you intellectualize a given problem, and because now you understand what the problem is, you feel that you've completed the problem like it was a puzzle, when actually you haven't solved the problem in any way. You just understand the problem. And those are two very different things.
Yes, you can now start working on the problem.
Now, so don't get so caught up in the understanding that you don't actually make any headway. Understanding the problem, I feel, is still very important. I think that you can't quite appropriately attack a problem if you don't understand it. But there's also a point in, you spend too much time organizing it and not enough time actually accomplishing. So, and I know there was another thing that reminded me of it. Now I think I lost it telling that story. So if it comes back to mind, I'll bring it back up.
Well, good. I don't want you to think too much.
No, I try not to. Because I do think too much.
There's a problem in this room for you. I don't overthink stuff.
He says as he looks over his shoulder at a massive list of things that he has been thinking about.
But, one of the things to keep in mind is when you're doing something artistic, there's usually an element of fear. And even if it's not artistic, but it's something you really want to do.
I remember it, and it has to do with fear. It's perfect.
Okay.
I used to tutor algebra, and one of the things that I liked doing with one of my students in particular was really eye-opening for him. It did exactly what I wanted to do. On the very first time we sat down, and this was a kid who was having difficulty with algebra, which of course was why I was there, and it intimidated him. So I said, "Okay, we're gonna do something," and I took like the whole top half of the sheet of paper and wrote a huge algebra problem. I mean, it literally took up half a page. Now, I think he was a freshman, maybe.
Is this high school?
He was either a freshman or he was in junior high. I don't remember. This was going back a good 15 or more years. And I wrote the problem up and I said, I want you to solve this problem. And he was like, his eyes bugged out. He was like, I can't do that. And I was like, yes.
You're insane.
And I was like, yes, you can. And I said, now watch. And I said, what is this? And I pointed to the different areas of the problem because, of course, it's all in brackets and parentheses and smaller and smaller and smaller. And we went through the entire thing and did the whole problem out. And he saw, while I guided him through it, he solved every bit of the problem. And the point is that when you're looking at the entirety of a problem, i.e., your project, your current, creative endeavor, that has a lot to it, a big mountain to it. When you use something like a Kaizen board or some other organizational tool, it breaks it down into smaller chunks. Like the old saying, like, how does a man eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. So I had him go through the entire problem and he solved the whole problem and he felt accomplished. Like, oh, I can do
the confidence builder that you need in that scenario.
And I was like, you have all the skills you need to do that massive problem that I just wrote. But what you need is the organization. And you need to not be intimidated by it because you don't have to solve the whole thing in one step.
Math is a great example of that because that's an area that's always can be broken down into smaller bits. And that's usually, as you get to higher level math, you're trying to figure out how to make it a smaller bit so you can work on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was actually working with someone with algebra once, and I said, congratulations. I'm like, you've already passed this. And they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, no, you did it in the 4th grade. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote like, you write like 3x plus 2 equals 10. I'm not doing the math in my head, so that probably does not work out. But I'm like,
it can work out.
But it does work out. But I'm saying easily, like a clean number. Mm-hmm. Which is what you always get in a math class. And the funny thing was,
to be clear, there's no such thing as a clean number. Jeff made that term up.
Yes, but I do that.
I think you meant whole number. Is that what you're shooting for? Whole number?
No, clean number would be like even a 3.25 to me. Okay, that's a clean number.
That's cleanish. Okay.
As long as
it would be a dirty number.
A rational number. Okay. Irrational numbers are dirty numbers.
Gotcha.
Except for pi. Pi is never dirty.
I love pi.
And so I'm like, and he's like, as soon as the x was down, you get the gap. Oh, there's an x.
Ugh. Variables. Ugh.
Yeah. And then erase the x, draw in a big box.
This is a square.
So it's now 3 plus open square equals 5. Oh, that's 2. Yeah, I did do that before in my first math worksheets. Because it's really algebra. The difference is we start getting to high school algebra, they try to make it look scary. You have to know your orders of operations really well. That's what most people fail in algebra.
That's really the most important thing. Algebra is the mother of it all, if you ask me.
But the thing is, it's like when you're doing a big math problem, though, when you're doing a process, if you break it down to its pieces, you can see the accomplishment happening, and that spurs you forward. It gives you a little bit of confidence each step of the way. It's like this idea of debt snowballing from Dave Ramsey that Michael and I are familiar with. And the thing is, the reason it works is you start off and you see I have this huge mountain of debt in front of me. And trust me, my wife and I had a huge mountain of debt ahead of us when we started. But all of a sudden it's like, gee, it's a couple of months in, we hit a milestone. We paid off a credit card, and it was a tiny portion of our debt. But the thing was, it was an accomplishment. It builds up confidence. Now everything's not quite that easy in life, but it helps you build your confidence along the way.
Let's be fair. That wasn't easy.
Oh, no.
You guys worked hard.
But it took years. Yeah. But
that Kaizen board got dusty.
That's one you want electronically.
Yeah.
If it's going to be done for a long time, keep it electronic. A lot of times, if they're short-term ones, I like to use Post-it notes instead of checks. I'm a Post-it note freak. But what I can do is I'll just move the Post-it note from what square it's in. And then if I need a little note for that, I can write it in the Post-it note. But the problem with Post-it notes is they're not super sticky over time.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, my project is on the floor.
Yeah, the cats are playing with it.
Yeah. Oh, Kitty, you found my Kaizen board again. Yay. But, the thing is, really break down the things that you're afraid of into smaller bits. Use a Kaizen board. It won't take you very long to set up. I'll give you an example in the show notes of the one that we talked about here, and I'll complete it out for a state with all of the steps, not just the couple I've written here. And then I'll do one that is just an abstract version.
Can you include a blank one?
Yeah. What I'll just do is I'll put in a blank one or whatever, and then I'll have.
They can use that as a template.
You use it as a template. One. Yeah. So I'll probably put it in something. Yeah. We'll figure something out.
Okay. Do you have?
Of course, I have those.
Okay. Are you ready for that?
Of course, I'm ready for that.
Okay. So, world builder task of the day? Let me guess. Build a Kaizen board.
Build a Kaizen board for whatever project you're currently working on.
And look, guys, this doesn't, if you want to use the Kaizen board as a practice to using a Kaizen board, you could just do it for housework. Like if you want to write down, I need to do the dusting and the laundry, and I need to do the dishes and whatever. You can create a Kaizen board.
Maybe you have the rooms listed down.
Yeah, great.
As the things you're trying to get done, and along the top, all of the things you have to remember to do in the rooms. And you go, well, honey, I got over 2% of this room cleaned today.
Look, there's the Kaizen board has a 23% show of productivity. I know it looks like I'm playing Fallout all day long, but I have gotten dusting done.
And of course, I've progressed 13%. You know, I've only progressed 13% in Fallout 4, and I've progressed over 20%.
So really, I've done a lot more. The housework is what that Kaizen board proves mathematically. Is what I'm trying to say.
Perfect.
I'm going to put this one. I'm taking this one home. Look, honey. See. I've made a 2.5% progression, headway in Destiny. I know it's taken me 6 hours to do that, but if we look to the Kaizen board over here, the housework progression has been 36%. 36%. You can't argue with those numbers.
For the veranda.
The veranda is very clean. Very clean.
Again today.
Okay, so what about the real world task for today?
Okay, the real world task for today. Pick one book that you don't want to read. And don't read it. Read a book you want to read.
Okay. Seriously?
Yeah.
So to read a book I want to read, I have to also choose one I don't want to read.
No. I'm saying think of a book that you don't want to read, but then don't read it. Read one you want to read.
I heard you.
Yeah.
But what as opposed to saying I don't like this task because you're applying a negativity to it.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just choose a book you want to read and read that book?
Life's not always positive, and it's sometimes the difficult decisions you have to get through in your life that make the positive things more enjoyable.
How is it difficult for me to choose not to read a book I don't want to read in the first place?
Because you have to think about it. So if you hate that mathing, as people like to call it, the mathing.
The mathing.
Yeah. You hated that whole discussion we had 2 minutes ago.
You realize that I brought up the mathing in the discussion.
But it makes the winning parts of the episode so much better. Okay. Just suffer through things that you don't like sometimes.
How am I suffering through it if I'm choosing it and not reading it?
Because you're forced to think about it for at least 1 second.
Oh, that's horrible.
It is for me.
Okay. Algebra. See, I actually like algebra, though.
Yeah, and some people do. And I like math. I have no troubles with math.
The mathings?
The mathings.
The mathings.
Some people I know call it math or mathing, and they don't like it.
I'm going to go with the mathings. I think that from now on. How are you at the mathings? I like that.
Just tell them it's Old English.
So what about tease for next episode? You know what we're doing next episode?
Yes. Next episode is Walkthrough Game Session 1.
Do I have to have my character created before that? Or are we going to finish the creation in that?
Yes.
There's 2 options in that question.
And you got one answer. And as always, make sure to go to gardul.com. That's GARDUL.com for the show notes. It'll be under podcasting, World Builders Anvil. That's a great place to get all of the information from the episode that you've just listened to and to see all the resources that we've talked about in this episode. Thanks for joining us in this episode of the World Builders Anvil. Please be sure to rate and review us in iTunes, and please help get the word out to your friends about our show. And join me, Jeffrey W. Ingram at Gardul.com, to see the progress of my world and learn why I made the choices I did. And please contact me and let me know the topics you would love to hear in the future. Now strike while the myth rolls high.